Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Mike. I'm an addict in recovery. And denial, they say, is not just a river in Egypt. Have you ever heard that one? It's something that a lot of people in addiction experience. You know, they're like, they have a problem, we have a problem, we don't know it until maybe someone else tells us about it. No. Because that's kind of how addiction works. You know, it's kind of like our brains tell us that we don't have a problem when we do. You know, our brains kind of work against us. So sometimes, you know, when people come into treatment, they've had to have someone else tell them they need to go. You need help, you need to go to treatment. Maybe it's a friend or family member, or maybe it's an interventionist. And today's guest knows a little something about that. That's kind of work he does. He might go talk to someone about that and help them get into a treatment center. That's one of the things he does. He's involved in a few different things in the Chicago area, it looks like. So looking forward to talking to him about that. I met this guy through a post on LinkedIn when I saw him talking about what he does, and I thought that sounded interesting. So he's been kind enough to come and talk on the podcast. Jay Webb, how are you doing tonight?
Great, Mike. Nice to be here. And you talk about getting it. I was 49 when I finally got around to to realizing and started listening to people and getting my help. But I'm based here in Chicago, and been here most of my life, and very active in the community and in recovery. I was born in a little town in Indiana, and it was a dry town, and my folks were pretty, we didn't have any booze in the house. They belonged to a country club, so I got a feeling there's some stuff going on out there. But it was until we moved into Chicago that we had some alcohol in the house. And
Chicago is definitely not a
right
town. It's
it
kind
was
of a hard drinking city, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, both my mom and dad's side of the family had hard alcoholics in their family, and the significance is one of the point at a time where my life was a little bit out of control by then, not full blown, but I had an uncle who's kicked out of the house and lost his family, and actually froze to death in his car in front of a liquor store waiting for it to open in the morning. And
how old was he at that time?
Late 40s, probably.
Right.
Yeah,
and so he had probably been an alcoholic for quite a few years.
Yeah, many years. Lost the family business and his family and that, but that none of that stuff would hit me for years to come after, before it really did.
Well, there was kind of a drinking culture, I think, that, like I spent a couple of years in Chicago. I was about 19 when I moved there, and I could get into bars all over the city without any problem, even though the drinking age was 21. They just let me in. So
yeah, it is a drinking culture. They changed it to 19 at one point, and it was kind of like my 19th birthday present from the state, because it was right as I was turning 19, and so I got an earlier start than others did. I was real active in school, and we're talking the 70s, and there's a lot going on, and my drinking started Boone's Farm apple wine in Strawberry Hill, I think it was called, and but it wasn't like I wasn't
not really top shelf stuff.
No, of course not. But I was in sports and active in high school, and played 3 sports and student council and all that. But that's what we did. Where's the party this weekend? All right. And then it moved on to college and Southern Illinois, and that picked up a little bit. And
what school did you go
to? Southern Illinois, Carbondale.
Okay.
Yeah, and it progressed, and that. But everything revolved around alcohol. We had, if you remember, or I remember, Christmas parties were out of control, and golf outings and summer company picnics and that. It went on. I was one of these that, and I got married and had kids, and I was going to quit drinking by the time they started school, right? Well, then I was going to quit drinking by the time they hit junior high. And I'm sure I'll quit drinking before they hit high school. Well, one was in junior college and one was graduating by the time I got around to it. So I was a late bloomer. I was 49, and it's been wonderful since. I did get it. I got it pretty quickly when I did, and a lot of it was lifted from me, and I've been able to do a lot of work.
The obsession, you say it like,
The
so I think, yeah, like the, when you read stories in the, if you're reading the A Big Book or other stories, it talks about a time when the obsession was lifted. So that happened for you pretty quickly.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. And I had sons that were drinking at that time, and had friends over, and I had no real problem with any of that. And in fact, I felt obligated and picked them up at any time. I didn't want my son driving, obviously, but I also didn't want him getting in the car with somebody else. So I was available to pick him up at any time. And they weren't out of control like I was. They had an off switch that I didn't have. Mine's broken, and yeah. So they're good. And the funny thing is that about that time that craft beer was becoming big, and the alcoholic in me, right, couldn't understand how they could go out and buy a $12 one bottle of beer, right?
Yeah.
It just didn't calculate with my alcoholic mind, right?
Right.
I was all about volume, but so I was active during our youth and in city organizations and PTAs and coaching and did all that, but there was always the community service work. It would be at organizations, and we do events, haunted house projects, and Wish Comes, Make a Wish, different projects, and then Special Olympics. When it was all done, we'd go drinking. We'd do good things, but all followed up.
So you were like I don't know, like a
Right.
Skid Row drunk. You were still involved in the
Exactly
things
I
functioning.
ran for alderman one time and that, but it got bad, and I finally got around to it.
So what was that bottom like? Can you want to talk about your bottom a little bit? Did you have like a moment or a time when you saw your bottom?
Well, I was drinking constantly and had all timed out. My sons had to get up for school at 7:20. There's the grocery store here is called Jewel, and they have a liquor section that opens at 7:00 in the morning. And my wife would leave for work, and I'd be in the car, and I'd be standing in line at the liquor section at 7:00 when the lady would come out of the office with the cashier drawer, put it in the drawer, and I'd be the first one there with a half gallon, and get home and be able to belt a couple back before I had to wake the kids up. And I got to the point where I vomiting every morning and that. So my wife got to the end of the rope and had an ultimatum with filing divorce papers, and that got me going, but I still relapsed. I was down to my one sister, who was about the only one who would have anything to do with me. So she got me into a program. It took me around for all the preliminary doctor's appointments and that. So it all came together. I was involved in Celebrate Recovery. I had AA. I had a church I was involved in, and so I really had a nice little, well-rounded, well-balanced type of recovery that took place. So I think that was part of the reason that I was able to was lifted from me, because that community service work I was doing before and drinking and everything, that rolled over into my sober life. And I started getting involved with ministries and started a couple myself, clothing, free clothing. We did work with a farmer's market that every night they have to throw out 2-day-old product, right? And it's just going into the garbage, and we'd be there with pickup trucks and filling them up with produce and distributed them to sober homes and places around the area. So that kind of just kept leading into where I got into what I'm doing now. I worked for Hyatt Corporation, was my sober job after I got clean. I worked there for 9 years, and right here in Chicago, McDonald's corporate offices are right out here in the suburbs. They moved recently, but I started at 5:30 in the morning, and I'd be off at 2 o'clock. I could do work in the afternoon with people, help people, put some of these ministries together, and just kind of develop, but all the time asking, God, what's next, and it was kind of a path he brought me on. I started, I had back surgery, and recovering from that, one Sunday I was looking, and an ad came up for sober coaching or sober escorts, I guess it was, and for here in Chicago, and I applied to it, and they were more or less collecting names, and that they weren't really hiring at the time. But I Googled sober escort, and there's a actual name of a company, Sober Escort, and they're based in Ocala, Florida. And so I called them, and I got the president, the owner, Rick, on the phone, Rick Parrish, and we hit it off. And he's about the same age and about the same amount of sobriety as I have. And next thing you know, I went down to see him in Ocala, and about 2 or 3 weeks into August, that was July, into August, I was on my first trip escorting. And
what year was that?
That's 6 years ago, so 04 or 14.
So escorting would be like if someone needs to take a trip somewhere, you fly along with them and go.
In this particular case, it's also called being a companion, sober companion.
Yeah.
And this gentleman was out at a treatment center on the East Coast. He was doing a double 30-day treatment, but had to go home in between for some legal issues. And I went with him about 10 days, I guess, to Helsinki. His home was in Helsinki, Finland.
Oh, nice.
And turned out to be a good trip. I lost track of him. I do keep track of many of the people, but yeah, he had a divorce going on. We had business meetings, and I would also serve as with the child visitations as the sponsor or a chaperone, whatever you want to call it, that type of work. And I don't know if I got the job because I was worth it, or as somebody in recovery. There's not a lot of us right away that have passports, and I was one that did. So I think that might have been part of the reason I got
Moved
to go.
to the head of the class, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So I started working for them, and it was really, really a lot to learn and very rewarding. Everything from like a nice trip to Helsinki, prominent businessman, to a prominent Canadian businessman, and a moose hunt in northern Canada for 10 days. Hunt. Yeah.
You went on a 10-day moose hunt for as a sober companion.
Yeah, exactly.
Because normally they'd be kind of drinking beer and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what I was there for. Yeah. Although it wasn't as much as I thought, because they leave early to get out to where they got to go, and they stay till dark, and then they drive back and have dinner and have to do it again every day. So, yeah. But there was enough of it.
Did they get a moose?
Oh yeah, they got their moose. Actually, I stayed back on the last day because they added a second guide, because one of the gentlemen hadn't got a moose yet, and they don't want that getting out in the public, that people spend all that money to go moose hunting and not get one. So they put another tracker and guide on, and sure enough. But
do they take the moose with them? They skin it and
Well, they don't. They take
department?
it. It's very well run there. You have to buy a tag, and once you shoot the moose, you have to transport it to the ranger station to get accounted for, and that type of thing. And then they take it to where usually there's places there that they'll, if they're going to have it mounted or whatever, they'll do it and
Right.
send it to you and that type of thing.
Well, that's a lot
But
of meat though,
it's
too. Those things
interesting.
are like 700 or 800 pounds, aren't they?
Yeah, they get it. The butcher will send it all to them and that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. They're very guarded. I mean, if it's a big season and there are a lot of moose killed one year, they'll cut the season down by a day or two. If there weren't that many killed one year, they'll extend it. So they keep in track of the population of the moose, and it's very interesting. But so those are the fun sides of things.
Yeah.
And there are places, I've stayed on nice beaches and everything, but the other end of it is going into a hotel room, getting a guy out who's been held up there for 2 weeks, drinking and using and not taking meds and not eating and soiling himself, and getting him cleaned up and getting him on his way to a treatment center, whether or not we can get him on an airplane at that point or we have to drive him. Sometimes we just keep him moving toward.
Oh, okay. So that's that would be another part of that is getting people that are still intoxicated into treatment from.
Right. And that's tricky, obviously. We've had trouble getting on airlines, or better yet, they don't have identification. You can get it. You used to be able to get through. You have to talk to the TSA person. You got to talk to his boss. You talk to his boss before you can get someone without a identification through. I think they might have ended that this year. Yeah, so we get them to treatment. Sometimes they can't, there's not a bed ready. Sometimes they have to wait for an assessment. Sometimes we have to sit on them for a few days to this time and just keep them out of trouble. And then the other side of the companion work is coming out of treatment. That's another rewarding part of it. These people get home. They've been doing meetings in treatment, but are they going to go to a meeting when they get out? And the male ego is can do a number on you when you get back home, and you start thinking, I might run into somebody at a meeting or whatever the problem is. But or they'll go to a meeting and they'll find differences in the meeting with people. I'm not like that. I'm not like that guy. I don't have that problem.
Oh, yeah. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, right. Yep. Instead of looking for the similarities, right?
Yeah, or they're identifying out.
Exactly. Yeah. And or they, there's too much God in the meeting, that type of thing, and they find a reason not to go back. Well, families.
Do you think that's a sign that they're not ready, or is that a sign that, I don't know, what is that? Because I know for me that went on for a few years where I was like, I haven't experienced all that yet, so I'm not really like these guys. And then I go to another meeting and I'm like, well, I've done different things than them, so I'm not like them either. And it's kind of.
I really think it's not that they're not ready. There's fear, and how that fear works. The fear. When you're left alone and you don't have somebody, and you're going to walk into a strange room, not know if you're going to know anybody, and afraid that you might know somebody. It's kind of a two-way sword, but that's what we're there for. We're there to get him to those meetings, get him to doctor's appointments, fitness programs. Maybe he's out of a job. Maybe he's got some interviews, and just tell you the truth. I've got these younger gentlemen, and they have had everything given to them or enabled. And I have a sober home here I'll talk later about, but I had a gentleman come in here and he can't run a washer and dryer. These kids get home from treatment and they can't work their way through a grocery store, that type of thing, and you think they would, but one guy had the washer so full of clothes here that he didn't understand why it didn't work. And I walked over, and the dishwashing pod, it was packed so full of clothes that it didn't get wet enough to dissolve the pod.
Oh yeah, because there just wasn't. Yeah, yeah,
The
right.
clothes were just damp in the middle,
Yeah, yeah.
and so these are things that the companion can do.
Uh-huh.
And it's an insurance policy, really. After treatment, families put in the effort. Maybe the insurance covered it, but they had a pretty good hit on the copay, or maybe they paid for it all. But they need more than 30 days. You know that, right? We don't get it in 30 days.
Oh, it's just a drying out. That's a little
Right.
pit stop. Yeah.
And the trouble with some treatment centers is they get there and they circle 30 days, okay? And the client is looking at that calendar, when I'm going home in 30, and that gets them distracted on what they should be learning there.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that puts an edge on when they get home too. They know they got to do the meeting stuff, but they want to get back to what they were doing before, or not necessarily using drinking, but going out and not dedicating their time like they should. And that's what we get them a sponsor, this type of thing, and make sure they have all their books and get the whole program going, so.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get it involved in the Interventionists? Was that kind of just happen along the way while you're doing the sober coaching or sober companionship?
Well, yeah, in the years prior to hooking up with sober escorts, I, like a lot of us help out in the program, and it's what we call 12-step work, right? And I was doing interventions, ad hoc interventions with a 12-pack of Coke and a pack of cigarettes in the garage on a Saturday afternoon with people, friends of friends or friends of friends' friends, and so I noticed I had a knack at that point of doing it, and even in the companion work and the transporting, when we go to pick somebody up to go to treatment, they've already talked to the treatment center, they've been assessed, and I'm there the next morning, and they've changed their mind. They don't want to go to treatment, right?
Yeah. All right.
They had a whole different picture in mind. So I'm doing interventions on the front doorstep with a cup of coffee and trying to convince these people we got to go, and we got a flight to catch. And
yeah, you got to get them right as soon as you either say yes, you want them on the plane or wherever they're going, right?
Right. And I go, and it's more supportive, that, stuff like what a decision, this is the biggest decision that you'll make in your life, and you're doing the right thing. And it's not that, it just calm them down and bring them off the ledge. And it works, it worked most of the time for me. So I had that building up and doing the companion work. And so the intervention stuff just seemed the next logical move. And I got Brad Lamb as interventionist out of New York. I took his training program. He had it here, based a session here in Chicago, and I did that, and kind of started my own little thing here. I still work for
the First Step Addiction Consultants. Is that that's your company?
Yeah. Right. And I still do sober escort work for them, and I'm working here. Just a little small operation, but I got enough going on here. I also have a sober home, a 7-room house here. I got 8-room house, 7 that were used, 7 guys, and that keeps me busy.
They have single rooms, or
these are it's a 3/4 house. These guys got 6 months or more. The longest one here is going to have 9 years next month, and the older 5 of us are over 60, and got a 50-something and a 40-something in here. The 40-year-old is working on his master's for drug addiction, and everybody works. Everybody takes vacations. They got family to go see. It's a whole different program. And part of the issue I got going on right now is a fight with the city on our existence. And so that's part of keeps me busy too.
Are you in Chicago or are you in one of the suburbs?
I'm in the suburbs.
Which one?
Elmhurst.
Elmhurst. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So they have
Yes.
like zoning rules, or what do they have?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we caught them off guard because they didn't have an ordinance talking about sober homes.
Sure.
They tried, and well, I had to eventually. Uh, I got moved into. I dropped my plea in or not, whatever my plan is. Okay, I'll go with your route because I had to do a conditional use permit. And anyway, the ordinance read that we were in violation of. They wanted us to be a group home, and we're not a group home, and that's where the argument is. The ordinance reads residents with developmentally disabled individuals living with professional staff, serving as surrogate parents, with group meetings, group activities, and all that. And we're not anything like that. And that's where we've been going around and around. It's been a year and a half now, and
are they trying to shut you down, or were they trying to change you?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
But lo and behold, the Federal Housing Act and Disabilities Act got us covered on this, and it's just a matter of them trying to. I don't know. They got to find a way out. But there's a home in a town south of us. The town is actually getting investigated by the federal government on discrimination. And there's a place up north that in a gated community at a $1.3 million home that they had a big fight, and she won. That the house is open and they're functioning fine. So we just got to change some thinking. The stigma is still out there, and we're doing it every day. So my days are full. I do the interventions. A lot of you live in a town for 50 years and you open an LLC on consultation and consulting. Be surprised how many friends you got calling you for some advice here and there, right?
Sure.
And so I do a lot of that, and I get my interventions come in. My transportations are big with right now with the COVID. We've driven a little more than we normally would. I personally I do an intervention and it includes taking the person on the treatment. And a lot of times it's easier just to get them in a car and start moving instead of 2 hours waiting at their house to go to the airport, 2 hours waiting in the airport, airport washrooms and stalls that kids could get in trouble in, and different things. So we've been doing a lot of driving and transporting with this COVID, and that the intervention work, it's just what it is. It's no two interventions are the same. We do a very thorough background with the family, background on the child. I've been doing this a year. Well, I've been doing it a little more than a year and a half, but my business is a year and a half, and do a lot of conversations and fact finding with the treatment centers. I've either visited them, which I did. I probably did 35 or so in the first year and a half, and then other than that, I sit down I schedule a call and I get the inside scoop. I tell my clients when the parents or the spouse or whoever calls, to stop Googling. There's a lot of misinformation on the sites. I try and call and I get the inside information and the different things that are hard to find or are not on websites. And I try to give them 3 options of treatment when it's time. I mean, if you got
like 3 different treatment centers?
Yeah, they all got niches, right?
Yeah.
Some have Native American Indian tracks. Some have professional tracks, Christian tracks, you name it. There's different different things they specialize on. And like, for instance, you have a relapsing 28-year-old and been in treatment 8 times. Does he need treatment again? 30-day treatment, or maybe he needs an adventure program where they do groups in the morning, and they hike, and they whitewater rafting, and learn how to live, a sober life, and have fun, I don't know about you, but I had a whole list of things when I first got clean. How am I going to go to a wedding? How am I going to handle 4th of July? How am I going to golf? How am I going to, all the different things, right? And those kind of places will do that. Or maybe he needs a hardcore 12-step boot camp of some type of program to really get him focused on what he needs to do. So these are the different things. Some are high end and upscale, and there's plenty of good ones that aren't, that are very good and get the job done. If you get to the bottom of the issue. The thing that a lot of questions are the trauma. A lot of things are going on with the trauma, and it's ever changing. The programs and what trauma has done to these kids and family and people.
Well, that's what it seems where a lot of the research is right now, is the trauma and its relationship with addiction.
Oh yeah, you can't even keep up with it. I had one case is a woman was molested and severely when she was little, and started using when she was 10, 11, 12, and in a couple more treatments, and still had problems. And I asked her when she got done. Oh, this was a share in a meeting, I think it was. And afterwards, I asked her, no one ever asked you about your childhood and any trauma? She goes, no, they didn't. Oh, she stopped us. No, they didn't do that until I was 18 and attempted suicide. That's how much we're learning. In the years ago, it wasn't anything, but it's ever changing now. And that's another thing that you got to check the treatment centers for them not actually doing the trauma work that they say they do. What level their staff is, are they master's level? Different things like that. And then I present that to the family and let them discuss it. We come to a mutual agreement, and we proceed with the intervention planning and that type of thing.
So I guess, when you have resources, you have private insurance, there's a few options like you're talking about. What about for the people who have nothing? Maybe they have state insurance, maybe they don't. Maybe they have no money, they have no insurance. Do you have places for them?
Yeah, it takes some work, but there are places that do take state insurance around here. And it was really tricky during the beginning of the COVID, because we didn't know what it was changing by hour, who they would let in and who they wouldn't. And then they would let in somebody that was coming straight from detox. They wouldn't let anybody in off the street, and that. But it kind of leveled off. Or they were letting in one. Let's say they had 6 or 7 places in the state, and they would let in two per location, and it was like musical chairs, right? The door, they would fill up, and you'd be on your way and find out that you couldn't get in. Yeah, we work with them, and then you through conversations and that we come across scholarships and different things like that too, that we get word of and can act on fast enough. Treatment centers were, some of them were down a little bit in their census, and wanted to keep people working and the place filled, and we put out word that we're taking so many people and that type of thing. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm kind of rambling here now.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's it's a challenge you see everywhere, in the state too. But we have in Arizona, we have a pretty good Medicaid system, and there's quite a few in the Phoenix area. There's several big treatment centers that take people on the state, insurance. So I worked at one of them myself for several months in my internship. So, yeah.
What it's a shame is a lot of the state places are more or less cookie cutter treatment centers.
Right. There's not a lot of, they're
No.
not customizing their treatment plans, or they don't have a lot of variety in their groups for people with dual diagnosis or things
Right.
like that.
Yeah, that's a really disadvantage. Of course, anybody can get clean if they're in the right frame of mind. So,
Sure.
But
yeah, then you have the trauma and the mental disorders and the other, the health problems. Because by the time you get to the point where, say, you're homeless, right? You're a homeless drug addict, right? Being homeless is just probably a symptom of a lot of your other problems, right? Like they say, well, get a job. Well, you don't have a resume, you don't have a work history, you don't have references, might not have a phone, you might not have a mailing address, just like, so being homeless is just like, say, okay, well, give this guy a home, but he doesn't have a job and he doesn't have skills, or he doesn't have, it's like, that's just one of many problems by the time they get to that point, right?
Right. There's ones they go from one to one around here. They spend 30 days at one, and and this goes for more than a homeless. The state facilities, they do their job. They get them clean. They get them sober. They get them some information, and they go home, and all they've done is tap the trauma down, right? And if they don't get to these meetings and they don't get connected, and they're left alone with their heads, it doesn't take long before that trauma comes marching back and taking over again. Sure. And that's the biggest thing. And then they relapse, right? And the heroin deaths in relapse are tremendous. They've had 60 days clean, and they have no physical obsession, but their mind takes over, and before you know it, they're doing exactly the same amount as they were before, and they overdose and die, right? So it's a vicious circle. And then, or they just overdose and go back into treatment, get it patted down again, and go back, it's and you get a mother calls out, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's been in 6 times and he still doesn't get it. Well, it's the same. It's the old adage: you keep trying the same thing over and expect a different result. It's insanity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, just continuing to go to the same treatment over and over again when it's not working when do you say try something else? For me, I had to get locked up. So it was
some of them do.
Yeah, I went to the state sponsored treatment for quite some time, but I had to, I think, and the treatments I went to before that were like 30 days. I went to a 90-day once, but even that wasn't long enough for me. I think I needed like 6 months to a year, maybe.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Maybe a year, because actually I did go to the Salvation Army program too, and that was 6 months. So
and how long did you last after that?
Oh, I relapsed before the end of the program. So
okay.
I was I was addicted to crack at the time, and the center itself was kind of in a neighborhood where there was crack available right down the road. So I kind of took a walk and found some crack. It was,
yeah.
So
there's a lot of that.
Yeah, but so Yeah, but it is, I think, for a lot of people, it is frustrating. So going in and out of treatment and people observing or saying, well, this isn't working, but you don't want to just let them, I mean, if they want to go to treatment, you want to help them go back to treatment again, right? So,
Yeah, sometimes it's no choice and just but when the parents get them in the same place 6 times and they're not getting it. Now the parents are pushing away more. Uh, they're cutting the family member out more, and in essence, if they would have gone and spent a little time and been a little more patient uh, in the original uh, uh, treatment program,
yeah.
it might. And part of it is, we try to work with the parents. It's a family disease, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them are so fed up that they don't want anything to do with it. That's a large hump to get over because it's his problem. So here, a 23-year-old, 24, whatever, comes home, and the family's just leaving him alone with his own problem because they're fed up with him, and he's got to prove to them, before they're going to bring down the wall, and it's just another pitfall that they're up against when they come out. So, uh, but the state, they're making an effort here in Illinois and doing some improving of the state facilities,
Mhm.
and that. And there's a few others opening up that are taking that state aid. So hopefully we'll see some change in all that. But
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a challenge, but there's still treatment available, even if there's a Salvation Army, which is the ARC, the Adult Rehabilitation Center, is a pretty good program, actually, that program they run. So,
yeah, okay.
yeah.
There's
Um,
there's some outpatient ones around here that have popped up that are pretty good too.
mhm.
And uh, some people have to resort to that instead of going back to treatment or even getting it.
Yeah.
Uh, but
And then there's some
I didn't
people
go to
who
that.
get sober without ever going to treatment. They just like go to meetings or,
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, it happens. I didn't actually go. My family intervened on me at one point, and I finagled my way out of that. And then about, I guess, 6 years later, was when I finally broke. But I went into an outpatient program.
Mhm.
I didn't go to treatment. But then I had AA, a sponsor, and this uh, Celebrate Recovery, and a sponsor there, and the church, and 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 outpatient work. So I had a trifecta going that for 2 months or more,
Mhm.
uh, and you just have to stay with it.
How are things in the Chicago area with the in-person meetings? Are you guys getting back to that, or
You
is
know
it?
what? This is a pretty good story.
Yeah.
Uh, I've been, because I wanted to stay, you know, uh, I want to stay out of the mix so I could work and help people and be available for that. But I also have 3 small grandchildren, and and my family, and even though if we were 6 weeks before we saw them, before we even got a walk by, in the backyard, uh, uh, they I wanted to stay good. So I didn't go to any meetings, live meetings. Our club here out in the west suburbs, they stayed open the whole time, and the board of directors would be there. They took turns, and a few people came in, but it was mainly open for those coming off the street in need, and were hot off the street that they were there for, which was great. But I went back last week for the first time, and I tell you what, I was never more grateful for this program, that sitting in that room, and the love and the care, especially with what's going on in the country.
Yeah.
You go to an AA meeting, and I heard it bantered around that the United States needs a 12-step program. Everybody, and
Sure.
and that, but it became obvious that there's something to that because, I don't know where these people stand on any politics and that come to the meetings. I've known them. I talk about other things, and we're happy. We respect each other, and I took it a step further. And if you look at the two sides in the country and where they stand, and I think about when I was in the midst of my addiction, I was closed-minded, angry, didn't want to listen to anybody else's thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Resentful, and I go, wow, that's what the whole country is, and that, but split up and closed-minded.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't be more grateful for this program because that just warmed my heart because I was getting stale. I love the Zoom meetings. After a while, I could pop into a meeting in South Carolina, pop into a meeting
sure.
in North Dakota,
Oh.
and that part was good. And I did a lot of networking with treatment center staff and that, so I got to meet a lot of them that I wouldn't have. But the suburbs are basically open. I don't know how the city meetings are.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Cook County suburbs have most of them. I'm pretty sure they're probably all open in some regard.
Yeah, Illinois was one of those places that was kind of harder hit initially, and now it's tapered down, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah.
Whereas like Arizona, we had pretty light initially, and then we got hit with this kind of second wave in the last few weeks. That
Yeah.
we were one of the leading places for a while. So it kind of things were opening up, and then they kind of went back shutting down again. So, but yeah, the meeting clubs around here, there are some that are open too. I haven't been going to a lot of live meetings either, but
Yeah.
some of the clubs are open. Some
Yeah. I've got another meeting, which is that I put together for family support, addiction family support for parents and family that have lost a loved one or has an active loved one, and for even those that have recovered or have their kids in decent recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And we include addicts and alcoholics to join us. And it's very organic because it's interesting how the parents have questions for a recovering addict that they want to ask and get information on. And it's funny when you hear the recovering addicts say that the best thing that ever happened is my folks cut me off and made me make a decision for treatment and that and the parents are surprised because they took so long to do it, before they did cut their loved one off, and that, so it's very, and doing that on Zoom, we're being able to get more people from different around the area, and as opposed to meeting live. So we're even contemplating how to proceed, whether we go back to live meetings or alternate the first and second week live, and so the Zoom thing has put some different options on the board for some of the work we do, like you're doing.
Yeah. No, this has been one way for me to kind of, I don't know, you get talking and communicating with people that, because this was like doing this podcast with you right now is kind of the highlight of my day. I get to talk to someone from another part of the country who's involved in recovery work. It's, it's pretty great. But otherwise, I'm not really going out and talking to anyone. I'll probably get on a speaker meeting after this on Zoom, but that's about it for the day. So, yeah, it's been really helpful for me because, and I think that's like you were talking about, needing a 12-step program, or what the benefits of it is. Like it gets us communicating again. It gets us not just talking, but being able to listen to other people as well, which is, can be rewarding too.
Yeah. You hear somebody, actually hits a button that, across the table from you, and say, hey, that sounds like me,
Yeah.
You got to get their open mind And that's, once you can do that, then you might get these guys into a program, but there's just so much we can do. And, I have a squabble with the city, and I think often here I've got, just 7 guys, right?
Hmm.
But in my little world, I've taken 7 guys and put them in a 3-quarter home,
Yeah.
and opening up beds for 7 other guys in a halfway house, right? And that really need it. And we need so much more of that in this country. And it's not, it's coming along and it's becoming more acceptable, but the stigma around here, uh, you know, be okay for these people in my area that if their kid went to an upscale treatment center and then into an upscale neighborhood for a sober living, it'd be okay for their kid to do that, but I can't have someone else come into their neighborhood.
Yeah, not in my backyard kind of thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking at opening a sober living here too, and just kind of learning about the challenges that go along with that too, with the zoning and the city license or the state regulations if you want to get licensed by the Department of Health and that kind of thing. So
yeah, it's a tough question. Do you open and then and go about it, or do you ask first, right?
Yeah, that's why. Well, kind of the advice I'm getting is that you can go ahead and start operating and kind of add those licensing and certifications as you go. Yeah, so because there's some red tape and fees and all that stuff to deal with. So yeah, a lot of stuff to line up.
Absolutely. I've got a gentleman here that helps me out. He's more or less the house manager, because I do travel but I have a board I have a board on my my nonprofit, and they're involved too when I leave and stop in and just make sure things are going all right but we had young guys when we started, and I did have the overdose and that, and things kind of switched on its own, and but it's calmed down around here. The guy's 60 years old. I don't have too many problems with curfew around here anymore. So,
yeah, with the older guys, yeah.
Yeah, no,
sure.
No, not at all.
Yeah, in bed by 9 or 10 anyway. Huh?
Well, some of them work quite early. And that, so it's quite a little group, but I don't know. What else have I not touched on?
Well, I don't know. I mean, how's your life going these days? What do you do for Jay?
Oh, well, I do get quite involved with my grandchildren. I take a day each week if I'm in town and do the duties. I have one son here, just is a few miles from me, that has a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old now. And I take them for the day. And then my other son lives just into Michigan, so we see them pretty regularly.
Yeah, and that's stuff a lot of people maybe take for granted, but for someone who's an alcoholic or addict, that stuff wouldn't happen if you were still drinking, right? No. Your family wouldn't have wanted you around their kids, even probably.
No.
Maybe.
Both my parents passed away, and I would have never been doing the eulogy, if I hadn't gotten clean. And all those things. Those are those things on that list, and taking care of grandchildren is, I don't know that I was a terrible father, but I certainly am a better grandfather than I was a father. And I'm happy to see that my sons and their young families are already better fathers than I was, and that's really rewarding. That they got over the age where I got rolling and are doing well, and to be part of that is just wonderful. We brought this youngest one home on a Thursday. They'd have the older 3-year-old, and so it was kind of just known that we'd leave them alone, and they had a lot of adjusting to do. And with the family and the new baby. And so we said goodbye Thursday after they got home, and we didn't see him for 6 weeks. So the governor closed the state that Saturday, and so we got in just under the wire, and that. But another funny day was a few weeks back. I had all three of them. I had a 3-year-old, a 1.5-year-old, and a 3-month-old for 3 hours, and that was a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kept you on your toes, huh?
Oh yeah. So that's a lot. I just I'm so grateful. I wake up and my feet hit the floor, and I'm on the clock for God. And usually every day I have something that I'm grateful I was able to help somebody or get something accomplished along that line.
Wow.
And,
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Grateful and humble. You seem like,
yeah,
I mean, you're doing stuff that maybe some people would say, hey, look at me, I'm doing this and this, and I'm
no,
involved. I got a nonprofit, I got an LLC, I'm helping so many people, but you just seem like, you're just like,
yeah. I mean,
this is what,
my kids are grown; they're happy. I don't need a lot, and uh, God will provide for me,
Mhm.
and along the way, I'm able to at least make an effort to change someone's life, and that and pretty successful, I guess, at least getting them help. That's all you can do. You can you can you can lead them, but you can't carry them on the shoulders, right? So
yeah. You can't care about someone more than they care less or more than they care about themselves, I guess,
right,
in the long term. Maybe for a minute you can, but
yeah,
eventually
yeah,
they have to care about themselves, which it's kind of a
yeah,
hard pill to swallow sometimes, really.
yeah.
I know. All right, Jay, I guess it's probably getting kind of late out there. It's almost 10 o'clock there, I suppose, huh? It's
Yeah, going
around
to, yeah.
7:30. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you joining me. It's been a good conversation here.
Yeah, and anybody, the nonprofit is called Carpenters Tools Ministries,
Hmm.
and the sober home is Freedom House. I kind of stripped down a little bit of the advertising and all that stuff because of the stuff going on with the city.
Okay.
So you can take a look at it, and then
Is there a website or a phone number they can call?
yeah, well, that was the web. Carpenters Tools Ministries.org
Okay.
is the website. And then you mentioned the First Step Addiction Consultants.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to take a look at it, we're around.
Excellent. Nice. Nice. And they can find you on LinkedIn, of course, too.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
where I found you. So,
yeah,
yeah.
great.
Awesome,
And
Jay. Well, I
all right,
appreciate it.
Mike, I really thank you for the opportunity. This is my first try at this, so I hope it turns out
I think it will. Yeah. It's,
good.
doing what we can and letting God, do the rest, I guess, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right,
Thank
Jay.
you all. See
All
you
right.
later. All right,
Thanks, Jay.
bye bye.
Bye.